Hello! In this next lecture, we're going to go over how we can actually make it so that we can shoot and fire our pistol weapon. And the way we're going to do that is by using a line trace system. If you don't know what a line trace is, don't worry, we're going to go over it. But basically, we're going to shoot an invisible line in front of our weapon whenever we shoot it. And if this invisible line hits something, then we're going to apply damage to it. So let's go over how we create this. If you open up the BP base weapon, and go to components and go add and look for a scene and just call this our line trace. Then if you go over to select and translate objects and just move this line trace slightly in front of the weapon flipbook. What is that? I'm finding it very sensitive to move around in this blueprint. If you go over to here where it says camera speed and make it something like 2, it'll move a lot slower and it's a bit more manageable. Okay, next go over to functions and go create new function and just call this fire weapon. And the idea here is whenever we fire our weapon, we're going to call this function and it'll run all the nodes inside of it. So whenever we call our fire weapon, the first thing we're going to do is drag off here and look for line trace for objects. Our line trace needs a starting and an ending location. Where our line trace is going to start is going to be wherever our line trace is in our weapon. So if we just drag in our line trace and drag off here and look for get world location and connect this to the start. Where our line trace is going to end is going to be a couple thousand units in front of our line trace. So our line trace is going to start here, but we're going to end it, let's say, a couple thousand units here. You'll be able to customize how far this line trace is going to be. So in order to get our ending location, we need to drag in our line trace again, and this time drag off here and look for get world rotation. Then from here, just drag off and look for get forward vector. This will get the forward direction of wherever our line trace is. From here, we just need to drag off and look for multiply, and then right click on this second value and go convert pin and convert this to be a float. Then just right click on this and promote this to a variable and call this line trace distance. Compile this, and for now, make the line trace distance 4000. Then, if you just drag off the get world location and look for add, and connect this into here, and then connect this into end. So just to do a quick recap of what I've done, the ending location, we're first going to get the rotation of our line trace, then we're going to get the forward direction of this, and we'll multiply this value by 4000. Then we add this onto the starting location of our line trace, and this will be the ending location of our line trace. The next thing we need to do, why this has failed to compile, is define the objects that our line trace is going to be looking for. So if we just drag off object type and look for make array, and just add 2 more pins. This first one, we're going to leave this at world static. So our line trace is going to be looking for any object which has world static. World static are objects such as this cube, this wall, or the floor. We want our line trace to be able to detect if it's hit a wall or something, so we'll just leave this. The next one, we want to change this to be world dynamic. World dynamic can also include objects such as cubes, walls, or the floor, so just leave this at world dynamic. And for this third one, we want to change this to be pawn. If I go over to my BP first person character and just select their cap tool component, go over to collision, and we can currently see our first person character has a pawn collision. Later on in this course, when we set up enemies, we're also going to give them a pawn collision. So we want our line trace to be able to detect objects with the pawn collision. That was the reason that we got this little error message, so we can just go compile. The current system that we've made is so that whenever we fire our weapon, we're going to do a line trace for some certain objects: a world static, a world dynamic, and a pawn. If this line trace hits one of these objects, then this return value is going to be true. So if you just right click and look for branch and connect this return value into here. Once we do our line trace, if we hit something, then we're going to apply damage to whatever we hit. In order to do that, we can just drag off this R hit result and look for break hit result. This R hit basically contains all the information about the actor that we've hit with our line trace. Click this little arrow and it will expand and shows all the information about the actor that we've hit. what we want to do is get the hit actor and just drag off true and look for apply damage and hook up hit actor to damaged actor, and under base damage just right click and promote this to a variable and call this weapon damage. So we may make it so that certain weapons do more damage than others. Just compile this. Let's just make it so that every weapon will have a default weapon damage of at least 1. Just so that you can visually see the line trace that I'm talking about, if you go over to draw debug type, just change this to be for duration. Next, if you go over to the event graph, we just want to right click in some free space and look for add custom event and call this shoot weapon. Then I want you to right click and look for add custom event and call this stop shooting. Then compile and save this. The next thing we're going to do is go over to our BP pistol. So I'll close this and open up my BP pistol, and in some free space in the event graph, we're going to right click and look for the start shooting. Sorry, I think I called it shooting. Yeah, event shoot weapon. So the custom event that we just made here. And whenever we call the shoot weapon, what we're going to do is just drag off here and look for do once. Then we're going to call the fire function that we just made, so the fire weapon. And this will do a line trace on wherever our line trace is in our weapon. After we do this, I want my weapon to play its weapon firing flipbook. So if we just drag in the weapon flipbook, drag up here and look for set flipbook. And here under new flipbook, select the pistol fire. Then we want to just drag off the weapon flipbook and get its length. So this one, get flipbook length. And then drag off here and look for delay. So we're going to have a delay for however long our weapon firing animation is. And after this delay, we're going to get our weapon flipbook and set it back to the pistol fire one. So if we just copy this, I'll go Control C and Control V. And then here, I'll change this to be the pistol idle. And then we want to reset this do once. So I'm just going to right click here and look for add custom event. And I'll call this reset weapon and connect this into here. And then after we set our weapon back to idle, we can call the reset weapon flipbook. Then we can just compile and save this. That's all for this lecture. In the next lecture, we're going to go over how to make it so our player character can actually fire and shoot the weapons that they're holding.